Oh hey, it's Wes, and today it's time to talk about the Iwata GL-01. Well, that's a little bit different, this guy right here. But why? If you know me, if you know my work, you know that I'm a big fan of macro photography and of the smaller details of wedding photography. And typically, on a wedding day, when it comes time to do the ring shots, do the detail shots, I will wander in with this Rapid Box softbox, which is one of my best friends, and I will set this up in the corner of the room. Got a diffuser here, got my light stand, and by that point I'll be a little bit obnoxious, be popping off flashes. So when Gear got in touch with me and asked me if I wanted to have a look at this little light, I was like, you know what? It looks convenient, it looks small, everything all included. I'll give that a try and see if I can replace my big old light, which usually has a V862 or a 8200 in it, with this little guy on a smaller scale, so I don't have to be quite as obnoxious when I'm doing my macro photography. First of all, what attracted me to this initially is the build quality. What is going on with this? Most people who I've shown this to, as I've been using it for a little while now, think that it's a cell phone. And even after handling it for several moments, still thought that it was a cell phone, but weren't quite sure how to use it. So the build quality of this is confusingly nice. We've got machined chamfered aluminum. There is a very nice display on the back. It shows you exactly what's going on, shows you your power level, shows you your color temperature, it even shows you your battery life and a very detailed battery scale and exactly how much time on you have left. That's super convenient. On a cheap light like this, I would not expect most of those features. I would expect it to be pretty dumb. You've got a socket on the bottom for mounting on a quarter 20, and even included with the order, they threw in this tiny little tripod doohickey with a cell phone adapter, which, incidentally, this is almost exactly like a cell phone. The front panel is not glass, it's actually plastic, so as long as you're not putting it in your bag with some sandpaper and such, this is mostly going to be used indoors, so I'm not too worried about that. That's probably actually better. I'm more likely to drop this than I am to scratch it, and this is probably not going to break very easily with dropping. It's pretty sturdy and no glass to shatter. As you can see on the front, we've got bi-colored LEDs, so you can let me turn the brightness down so I can point this at the camera without searing your retinas. So you can choose to alter your color balance depending on what you want all the way through. And if we look on the back here, you can see the screen shows you your color temperature as you're changing it. Very nice, very convenient. As you may have noticed, the battery is built in. It's got a 2300 milliamp hour battery and rechargeable over micro USB. Recharges about an hour and a half. I would rather it be USB-C at this point, as most things are moving over to it, but at least it's not one of those crazy micro B USB 3.1 connectors. I have something that I'm looking at that has one of those on it coming up. Ugh, I can't believe those still exist. This will get quite hot under operation, but I use this continuously for an hour, and that's about how long you'll get on the battery on a full charge at max power, and it didn't overheat, it just was hot. So overall, the build quality, once again, confusingly nice. It's a 10 out of 10. As a side note to build quality, I don't usually talk about the packaging. This packaging is really nice for a cheap Chinese LED light. You've got the diffuser holder, straps, micro USB cable, and you got this nice, really thick iPhone-y case, which does not figure into my ratings in any way, but interesting. Light quality, this is key. My first and greatest reservation in this is that I shoot with a Sony A9 and generally use the silent shutter as much as possible. So I was worried that this would be using some sort of cheap pulse width modulation to alter the brightness of the LEDs. I am happy to say that it does not do that. This is not causing banding in images. It is very solid, not flickering light. Again, pretty surprised at that. According to the manufacturer, I have no way of measuring this, it has a CRI of 96, which is very high. I would actually be skeptical as to whether or not that number is right. The light looks good to me, it looks great in the pictures. I'm going to be rolling through some demo pictures that I've taken with this. And so that is quite impressive, and again you can shift the color temperature from 3000 to 5500K, and it has a total output of 2800 lux. Very nice quality, but as you might be able to guess, this is pretty small, and the light output isn't amazing, like compared to a flash or something, even through a diffused softbox. Not a lot of light, but the quality of light, it's a 9 out of 10. This is nice light. Feature set. Did I show you this screen? Everyone I show this screen to, surprisingly, is duly impressed with this screen. As a huge nerd, I look at this screen and I'm like, wow, this is super easy to read and super easy to use. I liked the screen, and even my wife was like, huh, that's a nice tiny little screen. Doesn't need to be any bigger than that, but anyway, that's just one feature. For the lower light output, I'm actually going to take a couple points off of the feature set, not the light quality, because that doesn't change the quality. And the interface is very easy, very intuitive. You have just enough buttons to get the job done and not be confusing. I hate things that try to get things done with less buttons than is strictly necessary. Also included, one of the features is a diffuser that does work quite well when mounted properly, but it's a little bit weird, a little bit janky. It kind of has to sit away from it. If they had found some way of putting in a slimline diffuser, and I know that the technology does exist now, or if diffuser that snaps on more easily, that would have made more sense to me. Might have been harder, more expensive. So overall feature set, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Value. And this is where we come into the obvious strong suit of this thing. It is only $79.99. It is compact, all-in-one, and that is what I love about this. I can just stick it in my pocket like a phone. It is smaller than my phone. I mean, I've got a pretty chunky phone, but still. And if I want to stick this in my bag, it fits literally anywhere, instead of this stuff. The value, obviously it's a 9 out of 10. This thing is cheap. Strangely cheap for how nice it is. Okay, so this gives us a total of 35 out of 40. That is a very strong score for me. But, here comes the big but. Did this do what I wanted to do? Unfortunately, no. As this is kind of small and beautifully compact, I found it to be almost exactly about 35% too dim for the work that I want to do, which is a shame. Now, it is pretty bright, but when I'm doing macro photography, I'm usually shooting it between f4 to even up to f11, although I like a sort of a shallow depth of field. And at those apertures, I find that I kind of have to push my ISOs up pretty high, and then by that point I'm not balancing with the background that I set up with LEDs or reflective surfaces, because I like to keep things pretty interesting. And, you know, to make sure that this works in practice, I actually got in touch with local jewelry stores, and because I had no weddings going on right now, and I visited them. They showed me some very nice rings, and I took pictures of them with this tiny little light, which even they were pretty confused about. Overall, unfortunately, this is not going to be replacing my regular standard duty light. If there were, like, say, a plus version of this, if you imagine, if this were about 30% bigger, it would be about the same size as my phone, and it would be approximately 30% brighter. I would be all over that, because it is so close to being exactly what I want it to be. We're getting pretty close here. In an ideal world, what I would like to do is take one of these, shoot it from the front at a cool color temperature, take another one, shoot it from behind at a warm color temperature, for like an edge light, halo light, sparkle light, and that would give me the effect that I usually look for when I'm using macro photography. As far as the use for like a video light or something, again, it's pretty small and kind of reduces down to almost a point at any sort of a distance. If you think you can use this light, this amount of light, this is amazingly compact and convenient. Highly recommend it, but unfortunately, just doesn't do the job for me. So, until next time, I'm still keeping this in my pocket because it's beautiful and cute. Go take some photos. So are you, Groot.